Hello and welcome to Unacademy IAS English, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. A very good morning and welcome to the daily Hindu news analysis. So let's begin today's discussion by first looking at the topics that we are going to discuss. From the Delhi edition of the Hindu, I have chosen 9 important articles for a detailed analysis. There are few articles important for both prelims and mains and a few articles that are important only for the prelims exam. So first of all, let me apologize for the delay in today's session because today there is a technical issue with the Hindu website and the Delhi edition PDF has not been available. So we had to take the screenshots directly from the website and search for the best possible articles to take up for the discussion. And let's cover these topics as we discuss them one by one and ensure that it's a comprehensive discussion so that you don't have to pick up your newspaper and read that again. If you guys are liking our initiatives, do support us with your likes and comments and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Now before we start, I have a quick announcement. See, current affairs is a challenging area for most of the aspirants for UPSC civil services examination. As you know, current affairs plays a very important role both in your prelims and mains. So we have a special program to help students prepare for current affairs known as UCAN, Unacademy's Current Affairs Navigator. Under this initiative, every Tuesday to Friday, we have live classes. Subject-based current affairs is discussed by the respective faculties. This is a year-long program. So we have seen that this year the program has benefited the students both in prelims and mains exam. And hence we want to ensure that the program reaches a wider audience. So tomorrow, the first session of UCAN for the month of October will be provided free of cost or live on our YouTube channel. I'll be taking the session on international relations and internal security. I'll be covering the important developments in IR and internal security tomorrow from 9:30 to 11:30 p.m. right here on our YouTube channel. So every month, at least 2 sessions would be made freely available so that it can help all the students. And if you're interested in the program, you can enroll for the program separately by using the link provided in the description below. The link has been provided, and if you wish to enroll for the program, you can join the UCAN program separately, even if you're not a plus or iconic student. And also please note that as part of a new series that we launched last week, Chanakya Niti, where we are studying Kautilyan thought and applying Kautilyan thought into contemporary geopolitics, we'll be bringing out the second episode today at 8 p.m. again on our YouTube channel. If you haven't seen the first episode yet, please go back and find the video on the channel and try to watch the first episode. And today we'll be coming out with the second episode and I'll be taking up a very interesting and exciting topic. With this, let's start with the discussion. Let's look at the first article from the front page of the Delhi edition. Even on the international page, we have few related articles. This is related to the unprecedented developments that have occurred yesterday in West Asia. Iran has fired close to 200 missiles, that 2 ballistic missiles aimed at Israel, marking a major escalation of the ongoing conflict in West Asia. See, I have already covered this topic in great detail yesterday. Yesterday we have uploaded a video under the Nuanced series. You can go and watch the video. I have given the link in the video description as well. You just have to click on the link and watch this entire video for a complete detailed analysis of what's happening in West Asia, especially the recent attacks of Israel against Hezbollah and how it has pushed Iran into a corner and why Iran is retaliating against Israel. The entire details are covered. But today I would just like to give you an update regarding what has happened yesterday. So let's take a look at these articles in today's paper, get an update about what has happened, and for a full detailed analysis you can go and watch this video which I have covered yesterday and the link is provided in the description. So first we need to understand why did Iran fire so many missiles aimed at Israel. And also please note, this is not the first time it is happening. Just a few months ago in April, we had seen a similar escalation between Israel and Iran. Back then in April, Israel had carried out airstrikes against the Iranian diplomatic mission in Damascus, Syria, where top Iranian officers, including intelligence operatives, were killed by an Israeli airstrike. So obviously Iran saw this as an attack on its own sovereignty. as Iran's diplomatic mission was targeted, including its government and intelligence officials. This was a clear attack on the sovereignty of Iran, and Iran retaliated against Israel by firing close to 300 missiles, drones and rockets, most of which were intercepted by Israeli air defense. Even though it caused minimal damage, it did increase the tensions. But however, back then, in the month of April, when Israel launched this attack on Israel, the intent was very clear. The intent was that Iran was actually showing restraint. It was more of a posturing by Iran to show in front of the world, to show to its own people, and also to send a message to Israel that it is ready to retaliate and punish Israel if Israel crosses the red lines. I am saying this because when Iran fired these missiles in April aimed at Israel, Iran gave sufficient warning and notice, especially to United States, which offers defense to Israel. Iran gave enough time and advance notice to US and Israel to plan their air defense so that most of the missiles will be intercepted. That's why many experts believed that the April missile strike by Iran was intended to fail. It was designed by Iran to fail. It was more of a symbolic gesture, a posturing to show that Iran can punish Israel and to show that there are red lines that Israel cannot cross. That's why many analysts believe that Iran's attack in April against Israel was not indeed a real attack. It was not meant to cause large-scale damage. In fact, most missiles landed in empty territories. Most of them were intercepted, and Iran had given enough notice as well, advance notice to US to ensure that the air defense for Israel could be planned. But now what we are seeing since yesterday, Iran has fired 200 ballistic missiles aimed at Israel. Again, most of them have been intercepted by Israeli air defense and even by American air defense. Because ever since the Gaza war started last year, the US has deployed carrier battle groups in the region. The US Navy is actively deployed on a combat role. There are US aircraft carriers and naval ships in the Red Sea, in the Persian Gulf, and also in the Mediterranean, keeping a close watch on the events and assisting Israel when necessary. So both American and Israeli air defense have intercepted most of the missiles again. But according to reports, a few missiles have struck a few targets. The targets were military and intelligence targets, and this time the attack by Iran is on a different scale. Iran has largely used ballistic missiles, which are more precise, which can travel faster as well, which can breach air defenses. And also Iran has clearly shown the intent that this time it is ready to escalate if necessary. So the question is, why did Iran take this drastic measure? Just few months ago, Iran had merely done posturing by firing missiles and just sending out a message. But this time around, Iran has really taken the escalation to the next level. So what explains this? This could be explained by what Israel has done in the last few days. In the last few days, Israel has carried out a grave provocation by escalating the conflict. See, until now, the conflict in West Asia was centered around Gaza, and Israel's primary focus was on targeting Hamas, which was responsible for last year's terror attack on October 7th. But over the last couple of weeks, Israel has announced a shift in its strategy. After weakening Hamas and causing widespread destruction in Gaza, where Israel is accused of committing a genocide against Palestinians, where Israel has allegedly used disproportionate force, killing more than 40,000 Palestinians. And in fact, even the chief of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, was assassinated just a few weeks ago. That too when he was a state guest of Iran, when he was in Tehran. In fact, I would like to tell you that even then, Iran had shown restraint. Iran did not retaliate when the chief of Hamas had been killed by Israel. This was a grave provocation because any such attack was a breach of Iranian sovereignty. Killing a state guest when they are on their soil would mark a breach of sovereignty and can be treated as an act of war under international law. But Iran refrained from using force. It did not retaliate after the killing of Ismail Haniyeh. So this was Iran's way of showing that it was holding back in order to pave the way for a peace plan, maybe pave the way for negotiations and a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. So previously, when Israel provocated Iran by targeting the chief of Hamas, who is a proxy of Iran, and took out Ismail Haniyeh when he was a state guest of Iran on Iranian soil, Iran had shown restraint, hoping that this could push Israel and others to talk to each other and work out a ceasefire. But recently, Israel has taken this conflict to the next level through both covert and overt methods. It announced that it is shifting its focus towards Lebanon. From Gaza, Israel shifted the attention of the war towards the northern borders of Israel by stating that Hezbollah was a target, as Hezbollah has stood in support of Hamas and Palestinians, and it has fired a lot of rockets and missiles over the months in northern Israel, where thousands of Israelis have been displaced. So Israel said it's a priority to bring back the people who are displaced in northern Israel, who have suffered because of these attacks carried out by Hezbollah. So Israel shifted focus towards Lebanon, and we immediately saw a series of covert and overt attacks that has almost decimated Hezbollah's leadership. In fact, Hezbollah, Hamas, and even the Houthis from Yemen, they represent the axis of resistance that Iran has cultivated in the region. These are Iranian proxies. It is Iran which has funded, sponsored, and armed and trained these extremist organizations, be it Hamas in Gaza or Hezbollah in Lebanon or the Yemeni Houthis. They are all proxies of Iran as part of its covert war against Israel. And Israel is no less. Israel also has resorted to covert and overt war against Iran repeatedly, leading to constant tensions between them. So ever since the Gaza war broke out last year, Iran had activated these proxies, and it had used Hezbollah from Lebanon and the Houthis from Yemen to target Israel, to keep up the pressure on Israel in order to show solidarity with the Palestinian movement and with Hamas. So Israel treats these groups as a legitimate target. Not just these extremist groups, but even if civilians are present in the vicinity, Israel treats them as a legitimate military target. So after announcing this shift in strategy towards Lebanon, Israel carried out major covert attacks, including the deadly pager and walkie-talkie explosions that we saw a couple of weeks ago. Israel had planted explosives in these communication devices used by Hezbollah leaders and fighters, and it specifically targeted the middle and lower level commanders. Thousands of explosions were reported in Lebanon. A few Hezbollah fighters were killed, and several Hezbollah commanders were injured, especially in the lower and middle ranks. It created a lot of panic within the organization as well, and it hit the morale of the outfit. Hezbollah is considered one of the most powerful non-state actors in the world. Given the support it has got from Iran and the kind of arsenal it has built, it has thousands of fighters who are well trained in its cadre. It is equipped with long-range missiles, including ballistic missiles and as well as anti-tank, anti-ship weapons, which makes it one of the most formidable non-state actors in the world. So Israel targeted the lower middle leadership through these covert attacks by placing explosive charges through a supply chain attack within the pagers and walkie-talkies. Within few days, Israel escalated the conflict further. It launched deadly airstrikes in Lebanon, especially southern Lebanon and in Beirut. These were intelligence-based operations, and even civilian areas were targeted, as Israel accused Hezbollah of using civilians as a human shield. This is often the same excuse Israel gives when it targets civilian localities in Gaza and West Bank as well. It says Hamas and other Palestinian extremist groups, they use Palestinian civilians as a human shield. So this leads Israel to treat any target as a legitimate military target, even at the cost of killing a lot of civilians. Israel takes the risk in order to eliminate the extremists and ends up causing large-scale human destruction as well. For example, as Israel carried out these airstrikes, a number of senior commanders of Hezbollah were killed, while this might be a legitimate military target, but along with them, a lot of civilians were killed. Already the death count in Lebanon has crossed 1,000, including many children. So, as Israel started targeting senior commanders, this became another big setback for Hezbollah. In fact, a few months ago, the second top leader of Hezbollah, Fouad Shukr, the military commander, had been assassinated in an airstrike. So, following the covert pager attacks, we saw these deadly airstrikes where senior leadership of Hezbollah was wiped out, including the legendary leader of Hezbollah, the chief of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah. Now, this was the final nail in the coffin for Iran, because Hassan Nasrallah is credited with building Hezbollah into what it is today. If today Hezbollah is a formidable resistance against Israel, which claims to stand for Palestine, right? It's largely because of Hassan Nasrallah, who's a widely revered figure amongst those who support the Palestinian liberation movement. So, Iran cultivated Hassan Nasrallah, supported Hassan Nasrallah over the decades, and he had almost become a cult legend as far as Hezbollah circles in Lebanon was concerned. So, he has always been the most important target for Israel. So, with his assassination, Israel secured a major victory in this war against Hezbollah. So, within few days, literally within a week, Israel had decimated the world's most powerful non-state actor. It had taken out the lower middle level commanders, eliminated the senior leaders, including the chief, thus almost decimating this outfit. And this marks a big setback for Iran. In fact, in these attacks, even Iranian senior intelligence operatives of IRGC were killed. So, this was the last blow for Iran, and Iran decided that it had to retaliate, that it can't take these attacks lying down, even though it had shown restraint previously. This time, Iran has decided to escalate the conflict by launching more serious attacks without any notice. And it has fired 200 plus missiles aimed at Israel. Now, the big question is, what happens next? What are the options for Iran? What are the options for Israel? That is what we need to learn before we move to the next article. See, Iran only faces worse choices from here on. Either ways, it's going to be a terrible choice for Iran. Iran is in no position to hold back or show restraint. It has already done that when it launched the previous missile attacks, or when it didn't launch any attack after the killing of Hamas chief. Iran has already shown that restraint, hoping that Israel would receive the message and Israel would try to end the war, but that has not worked. In fact, Iran's restraint over the last few months has been seen by Israel as a sign of weakness, which is true as well. Israel has read the situation correctly, that Iran is not as formidable as it is projected. Given that its proxies have been almost weakened by Israel, Hamas has been weakened, Hezbollah has been almost decimated, the Houthis are not really a major threat as such for Israel or even US. They do create a minor irritation by targeting ships in the Red Sea, etc. But other than that, the Houthis can be tackled. Israel knows that. The bigger threat was from Hamas and Hezbollah, and within the last few months, Israel has managed to target both of them. Now it's very clear that Iran is on the back foot. Iran has suffered a lot of embarrassment. This is humiliation for Iran as well. So any further restraint by Iran will be seen as a sign of weakness. Israel will use this opportunity to go after the proxies with the goal of eliminating these proxy extremist groups. That is what has happened over the last few months. Israel realized that Iran is not retaliating. It's not because Iran is just holding back, because there is a possibility that Iran lacks the required capabilities. So Israel has used this perceived weakness of Iran, and it has gone on a full-fledged assault on Lebanon, Hezbollah and other proxies of Iran. So this represents a worst case scenario for Iran, as it weakens Iran's influence further. Now, if you look at the other option for Iran, that is equally worse. The other option is escalation, as Iran has opted right now, which means Iran needs to be prepared for an all-out war that could consume the entire West Asia region. Now, we would need to wait and watch how Israel would respond. Iran has warned Israel not to retaliate. Iran has said that It was a legitimate target that Iran has hit in these attacks, military intelligence targets. It has warned Israel not to take up escalation. If Israel retaliates against what Iran has said, then likely Iran would be pushed to scale up the war, which could lead to a bigger all-out conflict, which will drag the United States in support of Israel. Without a doubt, the US will come in military support with financial support to Israel, and we have already seen that happening. And Iran will be in no position to stand up both against US and Israel. So any further widening or escalation of the war and the continuation of the war will have disastrous consequences for the region. And this could affect Indian interests, and that is exactly what I have discussed yesterday. So I want you guys to go back and watch that video later. Just click on the link provided in the description. Now what you can do is you can take up a practice question based on this. The recent escalation in the ongoing West Asian conflict pushes the region to the brink of an all-out war. Examine its impact on West Asia and India. Such a question can come in your IR paper under GS paper 2. So what you can do is you can start your answer by setting the context. You can discuss the recent tensions that have been seen in West Asia. In one small paragraph, you can outline what has happened from October 7, 2023 to the Gaza war involving Israel and Hamas, how the war has widened with the involvement of Hezbollah and the Houthis, which are Iranian proxies, and how this has dragged Iran-Israel into a direct conflict. So you are setting the context, explaining that the region is consumed with these tensions. Then in the body, you can outline the recent aggression of Israel, the renewed strategy of Israel targeting Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah's leadership, and even going to the extent of directly hitting Iran if necessary. So then you can discuss that there is a real risk of a bigger conflict breaking out between two formidable rivals, Israel and Iran. You can't take either of them for granted. So this could drag their regional allies to back each other, and it could escalate into a regional war that could affect multiple West Asian countries. Iran has the backing of the other Shia countries, especially Syria and factions in Iraq. They do back Iran and they stand with Iran. Of course, the Sunni powers would not like to get directly involved, but eventually they would be dragged in as well, either covertly or overtly. And such a regional conflict could be disastrous for the economic and strategic interests of the region. So you need to bring out that a further escalation of this conflict between Israel and Iran with the non-state actors could escalate into a regional war that could destabilize the economy. It could hit oil supplies. It could hit the oil prices and the energy market. It could lead to complete chaos in the region, and this could even turn into a potential global conflict. It could drag global powers from United States to Russia to even China, as Russia, China are very close allies of Iran, and US firmly stands with Israel along with few European powers. So this has the risk of escalating into a bigger global conflict as well, and either ways there is no good news for India. Right? So in the next part of the body, in the conclusion, you need to focus on India's interests. You need to discuss how India has major energy interests. This region is the biggest source of oil and gas to India. This region is home to the Indian diaspora. More than 10 million Indians reside and work across these countries. Right? They could be caught in the conflict zone. In fact, they're already caught in the conflict zone in Lebanon and in Israel. So explain all these outcomes for India and then conclude with a way forward. And in the conclusion, you have to prioritize peace, negotiations. Point out India's position. India has always been urging all these parties to talk to each other, scale down the conflict and not escalate the conflict further. So your answer has to focus on a peaceful resolution to bring the war to an immediate end, or else we risk a bigger conflict in West Asia that could affect the region, it could affect India and the whole world. Now moving on to the next article, we have a very important column from international relations again. In fact, today we have plenty of articles from IR. This article is related to the Francophonie Summit, which is being hosted by France. The 19th Francophonie Summit is being hosted by France. So let's quickly understand what is the Francophonie Summit. What's the focus? Who are the members? And what is France aiming to achieve through this initiative? And how does this benefit India? How could India work with France and build better cooperation? How can India leverage the Francophonie Summit? That is what we need to learn. By the way, this column is written by the French ambassador to India. So it provides a very unique insight into French leadership as far as global diplomacy is concerned. It also gives an idea about India-France relations, because we have another article in today's newspaper talking about India-France defense relations. Our National Security Advisor Ajit Doval is on a visit to France as part of the strategic partnership dialogue. So India-France are taking forward their defense relationship. We have an update regarding that as well. So I'll cover that, but first let's look at the column. So what is this Francophonie Summit? Francophonie Summit is a multilateral event which is organized annually that brings all the French-speaking nations together. Countries with majority French-speaking population, countries with a significant French-speaking population. Essentially, those countries which have a cultural linguistic connect with the French language. They are brought together under the Francophonie Summit. This is organized by a multilateral international organization called OIF, the Organization of International Francophonie Countries. In French, it's known as La Organisation Internationale de la Francophonie. It's a grouping of French-speaking nations, countries with a significant French-speaking population. It was founded in the year 1970. Essentially, it brings together several former French colonies. Just like Britain and other European colonial powers, France was indeed a major colonial power that had spread its reach across Asia, Africa, and Latin America. So there were French colonies around the world, and of course the French language has left an imprint. For example, in India as well, France had a major colony. Even today, if you go to Puducherry, right, you can see the last remnants of French culture and French linguistic heritage. But interestingly, India is not a member of this group. India is not a member of OIF. But other than that, most of the former French colonies from Africa, Asia, South America, they're all part of this group called OIF, formed in 1970. So these countries regularly hold a summit, the Francophonie Summit, to build cultural, linguistic connections and also focus on economic cooperation. Today, the summit focuses on important issues of cooperation as well, because there are few developed countries part of the group, led by France and others. There are few developed countries from the global north, but majority of the members, which were former French colonies, they are still developing countries or poor backward countries from the global south. So they need assistance and cooperation in development. So be it financing development projects or tackling some pressing challenges and issues. All these issues are also covered by the Francophonie Summit. So this organization which organizes the summit, the OIF, it consists of a total of 88 states. There are 54 full-fledged members with 7 associate members and 27 observer members. Its charter was adopted in 1997 at the Hanoi Summit, and it focuses on promoting stability, peace and prosperity. It's a champion of democracy and rule of law and human rights. And it also champions cooperation, development cooperation, economic assistance. And that makes the Francophonie Summit a very important summit which is led by France. So this time, France is hosting the summit. After 33 years, France itself is hosting the summit, and you can see the members of OIF in this map over here. Look at the number of countries from Africa, especially North and West Africa. This is where France had a major colonial presence. Then look at the Indo-China region in Southeast Asia, covering Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. Then also look at the island territories in the Indian Ocean and the Pacific. Even today, France has territories over here, overseas territories. For example, it has the French Reunion near Mauritius. Then There are small islands in South Pacific like Caledonia and the others, which even today remain French territories. In South America as well, and in parts of North America. So France has a widespread cultural linguistic influence dating back to the colonial times. So the OIF brings these countries together, and the Francophonie Summit becomes a multilateral gathering of these countries to build their cultural historical ties, focus on economic cooperation, development cooperation, etc. So India, even though it's not a member, can benefit from the initiative because India, France have very close relations with each other. We have common interests that bind the two countries together, and the grouping, that is OIF, also has common interests which align with India's objectives. That's why the French ambassador who has written this article is urging India to be a part of the Francophonie Summit. If not as a member, at least maybe as an observer. Or maybe in the future, you never know, India could even seek membership as well. Because we do have a remnant of the French colonial heritage in India. Puducherry stands out with its French connection and the French heritage that is left behind. So India does become a right candidate to be part of the Francophonie Summit and the OIF grouping. Now let's see what issues does the grouping focus upon. During the summit, what issues are prioritized? The primary focus is of course on cultural and linguistic relations. That is the primary purpose of the group. Given that the French language and French culture binds them, that is obviously the primary focus. But other than that, this group, which is a very large multilateral organization, can help in reviving multilateralism. See, of late countries have become more conservative and inward looking. Many countries, especially big powers like United States, have been trying to move away from multilateral approach. But India has always strongly believed, even France has strongly believed, that multilateralism is the way forward. Meaning to deal with any global challenges, all the countries, at least most of the countries, have to work together. Just few powers can't decide everything for rest of the world. So India has always been a believer of multilateralism and multilateral institutions. For example, we place our faith in WTO, United Nations, even though these organizations are not perfect, even though these organizations are outdated. But India still has strong faith in multilateralism, and France has the same belief. So through OIF, we can prove to the world that multilateralism can work. India, France with the other countries can drive multilateralism because France is a supporter of UN reforms. It has always given complete support for reforming UN Security Council and for giving permanent membership to the G4 countries, that includes India. India has been pushing for UN reforms from a long time. We have formed a group called G4 with Japan, Brazil and Germany, and France has supported the claims of India and the G4 countries, and it is more than willing to support the entry of G4 countries as permanent members to UNSC. France supports the reforms of even the global economic institutions and financial institutions like World Bank and IMF. For example, the BRICS countries, which includes the emerging economies, they have been pushing for reforms of the global financial architecture. Right? So India and others have always stated that United Nations, World Bank and IMF are outdated. They are outdated in their structure and composition. They reflect the reality of the World War period. They don't reflect the realities of today. And France agrees with that. France agrees with India that UN is outdated in its structure and form. World Bank and IMF are outdated as they are dominated by the P5 and the Western powers. The 5 permanent members dominate the United Nations through their veto power at UN Security Council, and when it comes to World Bank, it's largely US dominated, and IMF is largely European Union dominated. So US and EU largely control the global financial architecture by dominating World Bank and IMF. So France, despite being a P5 member, despite being a Western country that benefits from dominating World Bank and IMF, still believes that these are outdated institutions, they need to be reformed, and new powers which have risen, new middle powers and global powers which have emerged like India and others, they deserve representation, and it supports India's call for promoting and supporting multilateralism and reforms of these institutions. So that is why this engagement with France, with OIF and the Francophonie Summit can be important for India. And also don't forget, the Francophonie Summit and the OIF countries, they focus on other areas as well. For example, at the 19th Francophonie Summit, which France is going to host, there will be focus on artificial intelligence and digital technologies. Now, this is something that concerns India as well. France and India both look at AI as a civilizational problem. Of course, AI brings a lot of benefits and advantages to transform the economy and transform the way we live. But however, there are many drawbacks, risks and concerns associated with AI. So France is going to host a AI summit next year called AI Action Summit in February 2025. France is giving leadership to the regulation of AI, and India can actively work together. This is a common concern. So France is hosting the AI Action Summit next year, and India, France have a lot of the common interests in this regard. So there will be focus on digital technologies, including digital payments, digital public infrastructure, and India is a leader in DPI and digital payments. In fact, India has already rolled out the UPI in France. When PM Modi visited France, India's digital payment platform UPI has been rolled out. We are looking to share our DPI, digital public infrastructure, as well to help France and other countries to roll out public services through digital methods. So there are a lot of areas to collaborate, and Francophonie Summit gives the right opportunity. It focuses on building human capital. It focuses on climate change, education, etc. These are all common interests for India. And don't forget, India-France bilaterally have a very strong relationship. By 2026, India-France will declare the year as the year of innovation. Both India-France will prioritize research and development and innovation in 2026. So such initiatives through multilateral forums like OIF and Francophonie Summit could bring India-France even more closer and together in the field of development, science, education, etc. So that is why the French ambassador is urging India to work with the Francophonie countries. So take up a basic question based on this topic. How can India benefit by working with the Francophonie countries? A simple, straightforward question. So use the points that I have discussed and try to write a good answer for this question. Now coming to another update on India-France. I told you we have another article. India's National Security Advisor Ajit Doval is in France meeting with the French security establishment to take forward the close defense relations between the two countries as part of the comprehensive strategic partnership that has been set up between the two countries. I hope you know that France is a major defense partner for India. In the security and intelligence domain, we have very close relations with each other. We have intelligence sharing between our intelligence agencies. We work with each other in the field of counter-terrorism as we consider the global terror groups as a common threat. We jointly counter state-sponsored terrorism, especially that emanating from the Afghanistan-Pakistan region. Other than that, we have joint military exercises, our Army, Navy and Air Force with the French counterparts. They conduct regular military exercises. Now, I want you guys to find out the names of these military exercises between India and France. That's a homework, assignment for you. Find out the names of all the three military exercises involving the two armies, navies and air forces, and mention that in the comments below. Apart from this, France has been a major defense supplier to India. Since many decades, France has been a reliable defense supplier and it has supplied critical military hardware. For example, the Mirage 2000 fighter jets, which has been a mainstay of the Indian Air Force, which was even recently used during the Balkot airstrikes. This is a French fighter jet. And recently we have procured the Rafale fighter jets, which has enabled Indian Air Force to replace the aging fleets. And we have positioned the Rafale, one of the most advanced fighter jets today, facing both Pakistan and China, giving India a certain air superiority over both the adversaries. Now we are looking to procure the marine version of Rafale called Rafale M, which can be operated from our aircraft carriers. See, currently we have two operational aircraft carriers, INS Vikramaditya, INS Vikrant. Vikramaditya is from Russia, right? And we procured the aircraft carrier from Russia and retrofitted and upgraded the aircraft carrier, and INS Vikrant is part of the indigenous aircraft carrier program. So currently these two aircraft carriers are operating the MiG-29 from Russia. But within few years they will be outdated. Indian Navy plans to retire them and replace them with the Rafale Marines, for which we are working out a deal with France. This would be for the Indian Navy. For Indian Air Force, already a batch of Rafale fighter jets have been procured through a government to government deal. It was one of the big initiatives by the Modi government, and parallelly we are pursuing a new procurement project to procure the marine variant of Rafale, which can operate from aircraft carrier decks, and this could become the mainstay of our aircraft carriers. Also, France has supplied submarine technology to India, the Scorpene submarines, the Scorpene class. France transferred the technology to India, and indigenously the diesel electric submarines were built under the INS Kalvari class. India built 6 diesel electric submarines under the Kalvari class. All of them have been inducted into the Indian Navy. These are some of the most advanced diesel electric submarines. So India has procured this from France. So that is why I said we have a very close defense and strategic partnership. So India's NSA is in France to talk to the security establishment of France to take forward the relationship, because we are looking for further cooperation in submarine development. India wants to expand the submarine fleet as we look to dominate the Indo-Pacific to counter China. And please note, even France has a similar objective. France also is prioritizing the Indo-Pacific, because remember I showed you in the map that there are French territories in both Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. So France is a major power, a major player in the Indo-Pacific, and even France sees China as a threat. Chinese aggression and expansionism is seen by France as a threat, and France wants to cooperate with India, work with India to jointly counter a rising China. So France could help India with submarine technology, with the fighter jets and other advanced military hardware. So this is the nature of India-France relations, and that is what you need to know. Now moving on to the next article, we have a very important column, something that concerns all of you. There is a column regarding the recent controversy surrounding the UPSC Civil Services examination. The Civil Services examination is considered as one of the most prestigious elite examinations that gives you entry to these elite services, from IAS to IPS to IFS to many other All India and Central services. These are coveted services. That's why all of you aspire to become a civil servant, right? That's why you're preparing for these exams, and it's considered as one of the world's toughest competitive exams. But however, recently a major scandal has hit the examination process. It has raised very serious question marks about the very integrity of the examination process. It has raised serious questions about the value for merit and how easily the system could be gamed by corrupt candidates. So let's understand what the writers are talking about. See, recently we have been seeing many scandals regarding examinations in the country. In fact, that even pushed UPSC to ask a question in this year's mains on these exam related scandals and how it affects the system, the education system. Recently we saw the NEET controversy, where there was a paper leak, but this was a one-time incident related to leak of a paper. It was largely mismanagement. This is an issue which can be easily fixed and addressed. But what happened with UPSC recently represents a major structural problem which can't be tackled without a long-term focus. Pooja Ketkar, who had become an IAS officer through corrupt methods by gaming the system itself, by claiming false reservation, by getting the benefits of OBC, EWS reservation, and by getting additional attempts. Pooja Ketkar had gamed the system itself, thus depriving meritorious candidates of their due. And after becoming an IAS officer, Pooja Ketkar had built a notorious reputation of misusing power. That clearly shows that the examination process may not be selecting the right candidates. The writers are correctly reminding us that civil servants cannot be self-seekers. This applies to you as well. Aspiring civil servants, you can't be self-seekers, meaning you can't seek your own interests. You have to be selfless. You should have a service mindset to serve the nation, to serve the public. That is why it is called civil services. That's why a bureaucrat is called a civil servant, because you are here to serve the public and the nation, not serve yourself. But unfortunately, in the system, there are several officers in the bureaucracy like Pooja Ketkar who have become self-seekers. It's a very important term in public administration and in good governance. Civil servants should not be self-seekers. They should be selfless, be it during the entry into the system or even after entering the services. This is very, very important. This is where the examination system should be designed in such a way that it selects the right candidates. It's not just about one's intellectual capabilities or aptitude. It's also about one's integrity, one's ethical values, right? So the examination process plays a critical role, from the subjects, the different stages of the exam, and eventually the whole process, including the process of reservation, how it is applied to ensure social equity, to ensure inclusion. Now, this is where major flaws are present in the system, which has been highlighted and exposed with the Pooja Ketkar scandal. Now, when you look at reservation within competitive exams like civil services, it's absolutely crucial to ensure equitable representation for the backward classes, SCs, STs, other backward classes, and even the economically weaker sections. But problem is, when it comes to verification of documents, verification of the records, there is a critical flaw present in the current examination process. Someone like Pooja Ketkar could easily game the system, trick the system, and get into service as well by misusing reservation, because the system is flawed. And UPSC and the government have never bothered to address the issue. Given the sensitivity of the issue, they know if they try to touch this, it will open a can of worms. There could be many more Pooja Ketkars who have gamed the system, entered the services, already reached pivotal positions within the government. So most governments within and as well as the UPSC has often tried to bury these instances without focusing on long-term reforms. But the writers, who themselves were part of the bureaucracy, they are urging UPSC to shed this mindset. They are urging the government to shed this mindset and to reform the system with urgency, because in the current process of document verification as far as reservation is concerned, there are critical flaws present. I am sure many of you would have seen in your own circle, even those who come from well-off families, who are well above the income criteria, who fall under the creamy layer, at least as far as OBC reservation is concerned, will be claiming benefits of reservation. There could be a family which is quite wealthy, right? But still, they will be able to get an income certificate showing that the family income is below the threshold. Thus, they claim the benefit of reservation. This compromises merit. This compromises meritorious students who are putting in the effort from the general category, right? When it comes to SC/ST reservation, it's much better, because if someone produces a SC/ST certificate, this is verifiable. Given the robust process which is present to issue SC/ST certificates, which is issued through the DC's office at the district collector level's office, there is a better system of verifying the antecedents of a candidate through a background check to confirm whether these documents are genuine, whether the candidate truly belongs to a SC/ST community. So it's very hard for someone to fake with SC/ST documents, because they'll get caught. But when it comes to OBC and EWS category, it has become quite easy to game the system, because here there is an income criteria, there is a creamy layer concept which doesn't apply for SC/ST category. In SC/ST reservation, there is no concept of creamy layer, the income doesn't play a role. It's about verifying the antecedents of the candidate and the family, which can be easily done because we have a robust process of issuing the SC/ST certificates. Right, the authorities involved, right from the DC, a senior IAS officer would be involved. There are checks and balances in the system to prevent fraudulent SC/ST certificates from being issued. So it's very hard for someone to fake a SC/ST certificate, and if they do, they'll get caught. But given the lack of clarity with regard to income criteria for OBC, EWS reservation, even for disability reservation, we don't have clear markers, clear indicators to establish disability. If you can game the system with the help of doctors and a doctor certificate, right, and the vague parameters set by authorities like UPSC, if you can manipulate the disability parameters with the help of corrupt doctors, you can get hold of a disability certificate and claim disability reservation. This is where the problem exists. In OBC reservation, EWS reservation with regard to income criteria, where even richer families which should fall under creamy layer are getting certificates and getting the reservation, and the other category is the disability category. Those who are genuinely disabled, they should deserve the reservation, not someone manipulating the system, gaming the system with the help of corrupt doctors. The reason why this is happening is because UPSC has not streamlined and strengthened the process. The government hasn't strengthened the process. If you look at income certificate for OBC and EWS reservation, do you know who issues the certificate? It is issued by a tehsildar, a very lower level official. A tehsildar has no wherewithal, has no resources to verify what's the actual income of a family. And also there is a bigger question, should we consider the income of the candidate or the family? Because see, there can be some very interesting cases. For example, let's say there is a candidate who's from a very poor background and claims EWS reservation, or let's say a candidate from OBS category, they genuinely belong to the category. So they would have got reservation, let's say they clear the exam with the help of reservation and their effort, and let's say the candidate gets into Indian Revenue Service. Now after 1 year of service or 2 years of service, the candidate's income and social profile would have been uplifted. Now the same candidate will appear in the exam to improve the rank, to get a better service, maybe to get into IAS. Now the question is, should this IRS officer, should he still get the benefits of OBS or EWS reservation because they belong to a certain community, or because the family income is below a certain threshold? Or should they be deprived of reservation because now they are in the creamy layer? Their income would have crossed the criteria which has been set. In this regard, the criteria's parameters are not well defined. That is exactly what the writers are pointing out. The system could be easily tricked and gamed by bringing certificates showing that the income is below this criteria. And again the question is, should we consider candidates' income or family income? There could be candidates who are just out of college, who haven't taken up any other employment and still dependent on the family. There could be others who are working, who are in high paid jobs with higher salaries, right, which means the family has been uplifted, but still will they get the benefits of reservation? The clarity is missing here, and getting those documents is pretty easy. You just have to go to the tehsildar, and usually at the lower level there is massive corruption as well involved in issuing the certificates, in many cases without checking the antecedents. And in fact the tehsildar doesn't even have the resources, the wherewithal to check the actual income of the family. What if, let's say there is a candidate, right, the father owns a lot of businesses and companies, so they are a wealthy family, but let's say that owner, right, or the father of the candidate is not paying income taxes. They are duping the system. Tehsildar has no way to find out what is the actual income of the family when the taxes have not been paid. So the very process of issuing the income certificates is flawed. Process of issuing OBC certificates is flawed. This is what needs to be corrected. A more robust mechanism has to be brought in. Now what can we do? What is the way forward? Let's not just sit and complain and blame UPSC, let's find solutions. Because if there is a question at all on this topic, you should be able to suggest the way forward. So first identify the problem. Problem is mainly with OBC reservation, EWS reservation, where the income caste certificates can be gamed, meaning can be manipulated. The other problem is with disability criteria. See, writers correctly point out as to why mentally disabled candidates are being given reservation into civil services. Don't think they are being inhuman, or don't think I am suggesting the wrong thing. To function as a civil servant, you should be in the right mental capacity as well. You should be of sound mind. Of course, those who suffer from mental illness, it is indeed a serious healthcare problem. They do need support of the society and the state. But when it comes to occupying key positions, there will have to be certain restrictions which the writers are pointing out. They are saying that disability parameters are not well defined, be it for visual impairment, hearing impairment, or locomotor disability. In these cases, parameters brought out by UPSC, it's very complicated, very vague. I am sure many of you don't understand the exact parameters even if you look at the notification. This allows few corrupt candidates who are self-seekers to collude with corrupt doctors who are willing to issue fake disability certificates. Even if they don't meet the criteria, it's not so difficult to get a fake certificate with the help of corrupt doctors, and as of now there is no action taken against them. There is no specific mechanism to initiate action against those doctors, against those tehsildars who are issuing these certificates. This is where the system has to be strengthened, right? Now, how do we do this? Some say technology is the solution. Some say make the exam online, make everything completely virtual. So there is limited interaction and thus you can eliminate corruption. But of course, technology alone cannot be the solution. It's not the only way forward. Technology will play a big role in bringing transparency, in building robustness in the system, especially in verification process, right? But that can't be the only solution. There needs to be other measures undertaken as well. So UPSC needs to have a rethink with the DOPT, Department of Personnel and Training, the nodal department, and the Ministry of Personnel. They need to consider building robustness as far as the issuing of certificates is concerned and how the reservation will be applied. There should be more diligence in conducting background checks on candidates, and also the exam process, especially the interview and even the mains stage, it should be upgraded, even prelims for that matter. The writers are correctly questioning why there is no greater priority given to aptitude and integrity. Now again, don't think I am ignoring the existing format. I know that there is an ethics paper, we know that there is a CSAT paper, but the point is it does not do justice to the concerned subject. Writers are pointing out in other exams, you look at defense exams, other banking and grade B SSC exams, there is a bigger priority given for aptitude that helps you select the right candidates. Around the world, if you look at competitive exams, there is more focus on understanding the personal profile of a candidate, right, where they are asked to write detailed letters of recommendation are to be brought. They undergo a thorough psychometric analysis test to determine what is their integrity, what is their emotional intelligence, right, what is their ethical quotient. Determining this is very crucial, but even though we have some elements of that in the exam, I am not denying that we do not have aspect of ethics and aptitude, we do have that, but it is not sufficient. And in the interview round as well, the panel should be able to figure out self-seekers and ensure that they are eliminated from the process, ensure that they are not clearing the exam. It is very important to filter out such candidates who are coming to the civil services only for the perks, for the benefits. You do not need self-seekers in civil services. Those who come for the money, the status, the cars and the other perks which come with the services, right? They should be spotted at the initial stages and they should be removed even before entering the services. But that is not happening effectively, which means there are existing flaws in the system. So writers are suggesting that there is a need for a comprehensive review. Technology can play a role. Aadhaar based verification can help in better verification. But of course, that is not foolproof. There are many cases where Aadhaar itself is fake, or Aadhaar based biometrics do not match with the candidate. So this is not a foolproof system. That is why I said technology is not the only solution. It can only be an enabler. So along with using the right technology, there should be a rethink about the whole process, the stages of the exam, the papers, the way the test is conducted, right, and eventually how reservation is applied, how the certificates are issued. There should be a penal action initiated against corrupt doctors and tehsildars who might be colluding with corrupt candidates, giving fake certificates. So this is what the writers are suggesting. Now let me know what you think in the comments, because this is an issue which concerns all of you directly. So let me know what is your view, what's your opinion on this in the comment section. Coming to another article on page 12, India's Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar has stated that we don't agree with the view of Japan's new Prime Minister that there should be a Asian NATO. See, Japan is going through a leadership change. Japan's Prime Minister, the incumbent Fumio Kishida, has stepped aside following an internal political crisis, and former Defense Minister of the LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party, which has been the ruling party in Japan, has become the new Prime Minister of Japan, Shigeru Ishiba, a well-known figure in the Indo-Pacific, and as a defense minister, he is known for his proactive approach on Japan's defense, especially against China. As a former defense minister, he had taken a very aggressive approach to push Japan into a more aggressive posture to be able to defend itself against the Chinese threats. So, this leader, Shigeru Ishiba, is known for taking a more conservative position, doesn't hesitate from backing off with a conflict with China. He has suggested that groupings like the Quadrilateral and other Indo-Pacific alliances, which includes Japan, India, Australia, US and other like-minded countries, they should transform themselves and they should become the Asian NATO. This is what the new Japanese Prime Minister has suggested. He has said that the Quad, which includes India, Japan, USA and Australia, and along with other Indo-Pacific alliances, they should come together to form an Asian version of NATO. Or he says that Quad is like an Asian NATO. That is the interpretation the Japan's PM has given. Now, India's foreign minister has rejected this. Even though India and Japan are strategic partners, very close friends, India has correctly rejected the statement, and Foreign Minister Jaishankar has said that we don't look at Quad or any alliance as an Asian NATO, because see, NATO is a military alliance focused on the Atlantic region. It was built as a military bloc during the Cold War to counter the communist bloc led by Soviet Union, right, led by the Western powers. So, India is very clear that we never join such military alliances. We are never part of any military clubs. The reason being, India follows an autonomous foreign policy. Right from 1947, India's first Prime Minister Nehru laid down the foundation of India's foreign policy, which is the principle of strategic autonomy, meaning we maintain an independent foreign policy. We are not allies of anyone. We are not allies of Japan, we are not allies of US, we are not allies of Russia. We will be good with everyone, we'll work with everyone. Now, this approach of India is usually misinterpreted as non-alignment, confused with the non-aligned movement. But that's not the case. Non-aligned movement was relevant in the 50s and 60s in a world divided by Cold War geopolitics. Non-alignment led a new path. A third path was created by India with other non-aligned countries by not choosing sides with West and the East. That brought stability to the world, or else it could have easily escalated into another global conflict. But today, the erstwhile non-alignment is misconstrued as India being indecisive. They presume that India doesn't take decisions or India doesn't take sides. This is a misconception about India's balanced position in geopolitics. This is misconstrued as indecisiveness on India's part, right? But Jaishankar has dismissed this perception. He has said, we are not indecisive, we are not balanced just for the sake of it. Doesn't mean we are non-aligned. We are multi-aligned in today's world order. Ever since Cold War came to an end, India has always been multi-aligned. Since 1990s at least, we have followed the multi-aligned approach, which it has only improved in the last few years. Meaning we'll align with any country, we'll work with any country. If required, we'll work with China as well, we'll work with Pakistan as well, if they serve our interests. This is India's policy, which means we never join military clubs or military alliances. Now, why am I stressing on this point? Why did I pick this article? It's because India has already put in a lot of effort to ensure that the Quad doesn't become a military bloc. In fact, in the past, US and Japan, they have tried to push the Quad countries to transform the Quad into a military grouping. They want this to become a counter to China. They want to contain China. Because the same countries have a naval exercise called Malabar. The Malabar naval exercise involving the same 4 countries. It was India which put its foot down and said no. India pushed US and Japan back and ensured that Quad remains a diplomatic group, and today we have diversified the Quad. Because see, India doesn't want any unnecessary hostilities with China. We don't believe in the policy of containing anyone. We don't join groups which target any particular country. We have never done that. Right? We don't join military alliances. We are not part of any containment strategy. Our policy of multi-alignment teaches India that we will work with any country that serves our interests, and our interest is not in directly taking on China. So when China called Quad as Asian NATO, in fact this term was first used by China. When Quad was formed in 2017 and the Leaders Summit was held in 2021, it was China which started calling Quad as Asian NATO, as a military encirclement of China. It was India then which took a proactive step, led by the Prime Minister, denying that Quad was Asian NATO. We ensured that Quad doesn't become a military bloc. We pushed back against US and Japan and pushed for diversification of Quad. So today Quad focuses on economic relations, cultural ties and many other areas of cooperation apart from stabilizing the Indo-Pacific and countering Chinese aggression, but doesn't mean it's a military bloc. So that's why India says Malabar exercise is separate. It's a standalone naval exercise. It's not connected to the Quad. Quad is not a military grouping. It's definitely not an Asian NATO. So this clarification from India is very crucial. Given that the new Prime Minister of Japan has openly stated Quad is like Asian NATO, this would trigger China, leading China to presume that India is also part of a so-called alliance to contain China. So by countering the statement of Japan's Prime Minister, India has taken the right step. India's Foreign Minister has shut down this argument that we look at Quad as Asian NATO. We don't have any such policy of being part of military blocs. We don't contain or counter any country specifically. And more importantly, we follow multi-alignment policy. We'll align with anyone who serves our interests. That is what we learn from this article. Coming to the prelim section, let's take a quick look. We have an article on page number 6 related to Bathukamma festival, which is unique to Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. During the Navratri season, which has just begun, the women of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, they carry out this flower festival. It's a very unique festival. Can you see the women carrying these flower baskets? They take these bamboo baskets and they collect the local medicinal flowers, right, which also look very appealing and appeasing, and they tie those flowers to the basket in a very grand manner, and they carry those flower baskets as part of a traditional ritual. The practice is that the male members of the household, usually the son or the brother, fetches the flowers for the mother and the sister, and it's a festival which marks and celebrates femininity. It's a part of the cultural tradition of Andhra Pradesh and Telangana called Bathukamma. Bathukamma means the festival of life, marking the divinity of women, the femininity. It's part of the Deccan culture and Deccan tradition, right? It is celebrated during the Navratri season or the Durga Puja season, specific to Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. So please remember the practice where the local flowers with medicinal value especially are picked. They are beautifully woven, stacked on a bamboo basket, and they are carried in this procession. Next, we have an article related to science and tech. ISRO has rolled out the Venus Orbiter mission after getting approval from the Union Cabinet recently. The Union Cabinet has recently approved the Venus Orbiter mission, and this would be another interplanetary mission of ISRO. ISRO has already succeeded with the Mangalyaan mission to Mars. We have other ambitious plans as far as the Mangalyaan mission is concerned, including the possibility of deploying landers and rovers and maybe eventual human habitation. Parallelly, we are looking to explore other nearby planets, and Venus is a focus, a priority, given its proximity to the Sun. So the cabinet has recently approved this mission, and ISRO is gearing up for the mission, and it plans to launch the mission in 2028, in another 4 years' time. So it will carry around 19 payloads. Some of them would be Indian payloads, around 16 would be indigenous Indian built payloads, and 3 of them would be part of international collaboration. The payloads will focus on studying the Venus atmosphere, right? It is filled with dust. The radiation levels are very unique and different. So the project will focus on studying the atmosphere of the planet, understanding the interaction of the atmosphere with the sun, studying the surface mineral distribution, the composition of the Venus surface, and such important observations will be picked up by these payloads, which will be part of the Venus orbiter mission. It will also enable ISRO to test out key technologies like air braking, which is used to slow down fast moving spacecraft, especially on interplanetary missions. Also, ISRO will have to pioneer the path, the approach, where you need to latch on to the orbit of Venus and latch on to the gravity of Venus to enter the orbit of Venus. So this would test out ISRO's technologies and the capabilities as well, and the mission would be launched through the LVM-3 rocket, the newly brought out launch vehicle 3, which is a modified version of the former GSLV series. So this is what we take away from the article. Next, related to economy and art and culture. 8 products from Assam, from the Bodo region belonging to the Bodo community, the Bodo tribe, they have been accorded the GI tag, geographical indication. A GI tag serves as a marker of quality and authenticity. It is part of the TRIPS mechanism, the intellectual property related WTO mechanism, and a GI tag ensures that a certain product, it could be a handicraft product, it could be a food item, if it's a specialty of a certain region, right, and a GI tag is attached to it, it means that the product's authenticity is guaranteed. Only people from that region, the genuine producers, can produce that, thus ensuring the quality and also ensuring protection of the intellectual property of that particular region. So in India, we have hundreds of products today which have secured the GI tag, and now the Bodo region, which has seen decades of conflict and insurgency. Recently, the insurgency has been brought to an end by signing the Bodo Peace Accords. There have been 3 Bodo Peace Accords till date, and the latest Bodo Peace Accord in 2020 has brought the insurgency to an end, and it grants constitutional autonomy to Bodo areas. Under the 6th schedule, constitutional autonomy is given to the Bodo regions. So to promote the culture and the tradition of the Bodo community, 8 products, most of them food items, have been given the GI tag. So make a quick note of this. Bodo Ju Guaran and Maibra Jo Bidwi, Bodo Ju Gishi. These are 3 varieties of rice-based beer, which is locally manufactured through local fermentation by the Bodo community. These are alcoholic beverages locally made by the tribe. They have been given the GI tag. Bodo Napam, which is a fermented fish dish prepared in this particular region, which is a local delicacy. Then Bodo Ondla, Bodo Guaca, Bodo Narzi, Bodo Aronai. So please note down what these products are, why are they unique, and why a GI tag has been provided to them. For example, if you look at Bodo Narzi, a semi-fermented food preparation, it's very rich in omega-3 fatty acids, essential vitamins, minerals, etc. It's a rich source of nutrition for the Bodo tribe. So please make a note of this. There could be a possible prelims question based on these GI tags. Coming to the last article for today. On the supplement page of the Science and Tech edition, we have an environment related article that focuses on the swallowtail butterflies. The swallowtail butterflies are very unique. They are seen as a prime indicator of environmental health. If their numbers are strong, if they are present in large numbers, it indicates that the ecosystem is well protected, well preserved. It shows that the environment is pristine. But if an environment is degraded, polluted, these butterflies will disappear. Their population will fall down, thus indicating severe environmental degradation. So it's a key environmental indicator. India is home to some of the butterflies under the swallowtail category. There are hundreds of subspecies under this, and a number of them are found in northeast India, especially in the state of Assam, in the Brahmaputra valley. Right? A recent study was conducted, and the study has established that man-made factors, especially the destruction of the forests and the destruction of the medicinal plants in the region, has destroyed the population of the swallowtail butterflies. Large-scale agriculture, industrialization, deforestation, right? All these activities, including overexploitation of the medicinal plants. This has destroyed the ecosystem, thereby taking away the population of the swallowtail butterflies, especially in the Bodo areas towards the northern bank of the Brahmaputra river. Now, in India, we have around 77 out of the total 500 plus species which are part of the swallowtail butterfly category. So, IUCN has categorized them as globally endangered. It's considered as a threatened species, seen as globally endangered because of the anthropogenic threats, the threats induced by human activities. And in India's northeast, IUCN has recognized the whole region as a swallowtail rich zone under its Swallowtail Conservation Action Plan. Given that it has been recognized as globally endangered, IUCN runs a global program, an action plan to conserve swallowtail butterflies. And in India, northeast region, which is home to most of the species of swallowtail butterflies, has been recognized by IUCN as swallowtail rich zone. So this could come as a prelims question. On this note, I conclude my discussion for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed the session, understood all the key topics. So that is it for now. If you like the session, do press the like button. Let me know what you think in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. So we'll see you tomorrow. Till then, take care. Have a good day.